That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
I cannot tell you how much time I've spent thinking about this. It's honestly embarrassing, but I am about to be on the clock at the 105 in our newest Flock Dynasty Startup Draft. Real money league, real Dynasty league. And I'm sitting here with the thought process of going, okay, well, I definitely want to get a cornerstone quarterback here. I mean, maybe stick with our initial plan of going Kyler Murray, but at the same time, now there's a new quarterback in play. Now there is a new viable option as a top 5 pick in a Dynasty Startup Draft in Deshaun Watson. Now, I kind of tweeted out as soon as this trade happened that we were going to be taking Deshaun Watson with this selection. I had a ton of people going to my replies and telling me, Mason, you're an idiot. That's a horrible idea. Why would you ever do that? And Thomas, just throw those replies right here. And I'm going to be excited to present some in-depth research on why I believe that Deshaun Watson is now a player that you can take at the 105, a top 5 pick in your 12-team Dynasty Superflex League. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to be talking about where my updated rankings had Amari Cooper fall, maybe my expectations on another free agent to possibly land here, maybe a rookie, Donovan Peoples-Jones. We'll get into everything. But of course, before we get into it, please fix your life. Go down there, drop a like on this video, leave a comment letting me know why I am crazy, leave a comment letting me know what I am missing, and subscribe to the channel only if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you don't play Dynasty Fantasy Football, I promise you, you're not going to really find anything useful in this video. I'm sorry, on this channel. This video will be completely fine for you. But I think that should be it for the intro. Let's just dive right into this. And the first thing that I need to address is going to be everybody in the comment section going, but Mason, what about the suspension? Mason, what if Roger Goodell suspends him for a year? What if we don't get to see Deshaun Watson until 2024? I've heard some of these takes on real podcasts, people coming out with the possibility that Deshaun Watson is suspended for a year or two. Come on. Okay. I am not a lawyer. You are not a lawyer. I am not in the NFL circle of owners who have access to Roger Goodell and know what's going on. You are not in the NFL circle of owners that has access to Roger Goodell and truly knows what's going on behind the scenes. What I have always said is the NFL cares about their money, number one. And here, this is why you see Calvin Ridley getting suspended for a year, because if you mess with the sports betting money, I mean, the line is going to be drawn. Watson's already gone a year without playing, but I don't want to get into that really whatsoever. What I want to do is I want to peel back the curtain. I want to look into that owner's room. I want to kind of get an idea of what the people who have access to Roger Goodell think is going on. And I want to look at the Cleveland Browns owner and what they just did, because they went out there and paid a higher price for Deshaun Watson than we have ever seen. Now, please correct me. I've done research on this. I've tried to find another deal that has this high of a price point, and I simply can't. Because if you look at what the Cleveland Browns gave up to get Deshaun Watson, it's unheard of. They gave up 3 future first-round selections, a third, a fourth, and not only did they give away all that draft capital, they gave Deshaun Watson more guaranteed money than any player in NFL history. They gave Deshaun Watson more guaranteed money than any player in NFL history. They gave him $230 million guaranteed. So I am not a lawyer. I am not a judge. That's, of course, way above my pay grade. I'm way too dumb to be a lawyer. You think that would ever be a possibility? Hell no. But what I can do is I can go, well, the Cleveland Browns owner, he probably has access to a crap ton of lawyers. The Cleveland Browns owner, he probably has spoken to Roger Goodell. I mean, I would assume that if he's going to sign off on giving Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed and investing a significant portion of this team's future into this one individual player to a measure that we have never seen before, he probably knows that Watson's not about to get suspended for a season. So I personally am not worried about that at all anymore. I mean, the only trade that I can see that's close to this is what we just saw with Russell Wilson, which was 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock, no value whatsoever. Noah Fant, at this point, I mean, you see these veterans. I think he was kind of treated as a throw-in in this deal, and I'm going to be the first one to admit I have no idea what the market value of Shelby Harris is. Like, you know I'm stupid. But I think that this Watson deal, this investment into Watson, is unheard of in the NFL. So I'm going to allow the person paying Watson $230 million guaranteed to override whatever my judgment may be on the time that Deshaun Watson would miss. And I'm assuming that it's going to be minimal at all this season. So let's get beyond that. Let's get beyond the obvious fear of suspensions. Now, if you think I'm missing something here, please let me know. But I think if we're trying to look at anything more than what just happened, we're probably reading too much into the situation. Now, let's go over and let's look at Deshaun Watson with the previous production that we have had, because we haven't seen Watson since 2020. We haven't seen Deshaun Watson play football in over a year. So it's kind of hard to remember the exact caliber of a player that we're looking at. And of course, everybody knows that Deshaun Watson, a great NFL quarterback, but do we know to the extent that Deshaun Watson has been in his career? Because Watson has been up there with Mahomes. Watson is up there with Allen. Watson's been better than Allen if you look at the past 4 seasons. Now, I'm not going to say you need to have Josh Allen ranked behind Deshaun Watson by any means. Of course, I'm not a crazy person. But here, if we look at Deshaun Watson through the first 4 years of his NFL career, of course, these are per game numbers, but that's how you should always be looking at it. You should be drawing a line saying, okay, well, let's count 8 games and up, but let's look at per game numbers. Deshaun Watson, 2017, the quarterback 1. 2018, the quarterback 4. 2019, the quarterback 2. 2020, the quarterback 6. So we have seen a 4-year sample where the worst year of his career from a fantasy finish was the quarterback 6 in 2020 when he was second in the NFL in passing yards. Hopefully that gives you some context of what we are looking at with Deshaun Watson in the talent that he has. And now, of course, you can always make the argument, well, Mason, we're looking at points per game. It's almost impossible to separate the quarterback, their points per game, from the situation around them because, I mean, obviously, the offensive line plays into it. The weapons plays into it. I mean, coaching plays into it. I mean, a lot of people are making the argument that someone like Trevor Lawrence and his points per game from his rookie season is not going to matter at all predicting him going forward because he had Urban Meyer, because he had a bad offensive line, because he had no weapons. And I agree with you, of course, if fantasy football was just looking at points per game, then nobody would play the game because everybody would be a winner, right? I mean, there would be no edge to be had. So we need to dive into the context of the situation that Deshaun Watson was operating in through this 4-year stretch in Houston. Now, first thing I want to address is the coach we're looking at. Now, I know everybody wants to make excuses for Justin Fields and Matt Nagy. Everybody wants to make excuses for Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer, which you should be able to. But Deshaun Watson went to a team that had Bill O'Brien as the head coach. Now, I maybe am a little bit biased because, I mean, back when I was younger, I was a Houston Texans fan. I really quit being a fan of the team probably about 2014, 2015 when I really fell in love with Dynasty Fantasy Football. So don't think that I was really ever rooting for Watson in Houston. I mean, really haven't rooted for this team since they had Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson. But nonetheless, maybe I'm biased. But from my perspective, Bill O'Brien, at the time he was a head coach / general manager, was one of the worst head coaches in the NFL. I think at the minimum, we can all get on the same page and we can say he had below average coaching. Okay, let's start it off there. Now, let's then progress to the offensive line that he was working with. Now, of course, I am stupid. I cannot go through and remember how the offensive line was in 2017. And I think that a lot of PFF grades, honestly, people look at them with not the right context. And I'm so tired of people sending me PFF grades, but I'm going to pull them up. I'm going to be looking at their grades for their offensive lines per season here for 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. PFF graded the offensive line in 2017. Watson's rookie season is the worst offensive line in the NFL. In 2018, 23, 2019, the 20th, 2020, the 23rd yet again. So on average, Deshaun Watson was playing behind the 25th ranked offensive line during this 4-year stretch. So a bottom 10 offensive line. And if we look at his weapons, he had DeAndre Hopkins. That was fantastic. Now, what I want to do is I want to go through and look at the team's leader in receptions, and we are not going to be looking at this from a per game standpoint because keep in mind, while y'all know everything I do is from a per game standpoint, when we're evaluating an individual player, that's not going to be fair to do to Deshaun Watson in this scenario because we need to be looking at what he was dealing with for the majority of the season. We need to be looking at what he was dealing with for, the 7 games that Will Fuller missed because he was putting up points. We're evaluating his point finishes in this situation. So I think we should be looking at the reception totals to have an idea of the top options on each offense. 2017, the top options with receptions: DeAndre Hopkins, Lamar Miller, Bruce Ellington. So you got DeAndre Hopkins, nobody else. 2018, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller. Will Fuller was second in receptions this season, and he played 7 games. So less than half a season from Will Fuller, and then Kiki QT, your third option. So pretty much DeAndre Hopkins, that's it. Third season, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller played 11 games. Then you had Duke Johnson. 2020, you got Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, who played 11 games, and Randall Cobb, who played 10 games. So we can look at this situation and say below average coaching, bottom 10 offensive line, almost a bottom 5 offensive line. Most years he was there. And last but not least, an elite weapon in DeAndre Hopkins and really nothing beyond that. So with these finishes from Deshaun Watson to be the quarterback 1, 4, 2, and 6 during this stretch, that is absurd. And if we're trying to project him going forward, let's look at this Cleveland Browns situation. And with Cleveland, I will be the first person to admit it's going to get tough. When you're paying Deshaun Watson this much money, when you don't have a first-round pick in 2022, 2023, or 2024, this situation probably is better now than it's going to be 3 years down the line. I'll be the first person to acknowledge that, but keep in mind, maybe they get something for Baker. Baker on a contract year, probably not getting much more than what you had the Indianapolis Colts getting Carson Wentz with, but considering the Wentz contract, Baker's probably going to go for a little bit more than that. Nonetheless, that's a long way to say they're going to be able to add another small piece by trading away Baker Mayfield. But let's look at this Cleveland Browns situation. So in 2021, they had a top 10 offensive line. And here the right tackle missed the majority of the season as well, which, had them getting knocked down from where they finished in 2020. And 2020, just 2 years ago, Cleveland had the number 1 graded offensive line in the entire NFL. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case going forward, but still, this should be a vastly improved unit compared to what Deshaun Watson is used to playing behind. And if we look at his wide receiver core, it is going to be similar to what he had in Houston with Amari Cooper as the alpha wide receiver 1. Now, y'all know I'm an Amari fanboy. Yes, just a week ago when we thought the quarterback was going to be Baker Mayfield, I was saying to sell Amari, despite y'all know I have loved him for a very long time. But with Amari, I think that he will be able to operate as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Hopefully, they sign Will Fuller. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, they've signed Will Fuller. And outside of that, they have Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz to be able to stretch the field. And of course, they're possibly also going to bring in someone like Julio Jones. They can go draft someone in the 2nd round. They can get a David Bell in the 3rd round. There are a lot of options that Cleveland can have to bring in a second wide receiver here. But we can look at the offensive line, say it's going to be significantly better than what he had in Houston. The receiving core, say it's going to be similar, possibly slightly worse if they're not able to get a significant second wide receiver in, but I would believe that they are going to prioritize that now that they have Deshaun Watson, and the coaching staff is going to be better than what Bill O'Brien was. So this situation that he has in Cleveland, like, trust me, I get it. Cleveland is a nasty spot for a quarterback to land. It's been where quarterbacks go to die. But Watson is coming from a situation that was just as bad in Houston. And that's why I'm not too worried about it. Now, if we go through and if we look at some of the other quarterbacks people are going to be advocating to take over Deshaun Watson in dynasty startups, I know someone that everybody's going to prefer over Deshaun Watson at this point, and I am urging you to think about this a little bit longer. It's going to be Joe Burrow. Now, if you look at Joe Burrow is 25 years old and Deshaun Watson's 26. Now, I am not using this as a mark to drive the majority of the evaluation because with these quarterbacks, age doesn't really matter. 24, 25, 26, 27, even 28, all pretty much the same for the quarterback position. If these guys are going to be lasting till they're 37, who the hell cares about their age? But just to give you all some context in this, they're pretty much identical with it. So you can't make the argument, okay, well, Joe Burrow's going to continue to develop. Joe Burrow's going to get so much better. Deshaun Watson's already peaked out. They're the same age. Like, what are we talking about here? And with Deshaun Watson, as I've said time and time again, 2017, quarterback 1, 2018, quarterback 4, 2019, quarterback 2, 2020, quarterback 6. You look at Joe Burrow, 2020, the quarterback 14, 2021, the quarterback 11. You can double check me on all this. This is weeks 1 through 16 for every year here. So if we are looking at those finishes, Joe Burrow's best season, of course, he's only played 2 years. I acknowledge that. He's only played 2 years. Joe Burrow will continue to get better. But Watson's played 4 years, and 100% of those seasons, he has finished better than Joe Burrow has ever shown us in fantasy. So if Joe Burrow continues to develop, which he most likely will, then his ceiling is probably going to end up being close to what we've historically seen Deshaun Watson's floor as a top 5 quarterback. Yeah, Joe Burrow can turn into a top 5 quarterback, but Deshaun Watson's already that top 5 quarterback. They're the same age. I know the situation in Cleveland is a lot worse than Cincinnati, but at the same time, if you're looking at Deshaun Watson, this production he's previously put up in his NFL career has been in a situation that's been just as bad. So I know a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with me on this one, but Deshaun Watson, he's right on that borderline. If you think that he's suspended for a year, sure, of course, you prefer Joe Burrow. You prefer Kyler Murray. I'm not going to argue with that. You prefer Jonathan Taylor if you think that Deshaun Watson's suspended for a year. But I'm looking at it saying the Cleveland Browns owner probably knows a lot more than we do. And he just gave him $230 million and invested 3 first-round picks into him. So I'm not going to be overly worried about that. Now, what I also want to look at is where we're going to be ranking Amari Cooper in Dynasty because, I mean, y'all know I had that video a week ago once Amari Cooper was traded. And I said, Amari Cooper, I mean, this is a player that you have to be plummeting down your Dynasty rankings because if you looked at Baker Mayfield and if you looked at how he just killed receivers in Cleveland, I mean, even if Amari Cooper was going to have an elite target share, which we acknowledged that he would because he has no target competition in Cleveland, just the probability of him becoming a wide receiver 1 was highly unlikely, with this offense probably being a bottom 5 offense in terms of their passing yards on a season total. But now it's completely different. Now, if you're looking at Deshaun Watson being here, we've seen Watson be second in the NFL in passing yards. With that horrible situation we previously discussed, with his wide receiver 1 being Will Fuller and his wide receiver 2 being Brandon Cooks. So there's a real possibility that this Cleveland Browns offense is a top 10 to 5 passing offense in the NFL this upcoming season. And if they are a top 10 to 5 passing offense in the NFL, what is holding Amari Cooper back from being that low-end wide receiver 1 in fantasy? So, of course, you're bumping him way up in redraft leagues, and this is right after I said that Amari Cooper was falling down in rankings. I'll be the first person to acknowledge that. But if we're looking at where I have him in my Dynasty rankings now, I currently have him as wide receiver 22. I have him back-to-back with DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, and then I have him ahead of Keenan Allen. Because if you're looking at Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper, I will be the first person to acknowledge, yeah, hell yeah. If you're talking about a redraft format, you are going to prefer going out there and getting Keenan Allen over Amari. Of course, Keenan Allen's coming off of a top 10 wide receiver season from a per game standpoint, but Keenan Allen is going to be 30 years old in like a month. Whereas Amari Cooper, I mean, yes, was only drafted 2 years after Keenan Allen, but still, Amari Cooper is currently 27. So if you're telling me we get a 3-year reset with Amari, comparing him to Keenan Allen in particular, give me Amari Cooper in Dynasty. If we're looking at Amari Cooper compared to someone like Mike Evans as well, yes, Tom Brady is going to have more passing volume in Tampa than what you're going to get in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson is going to be there for the next 5 years. Tom Brady has 1 year left. I think it's hard to say that Tom Brady has more than a year left after he just came back from retirement. On top of this, Mike Evans competing with Chris Godwin for targets, whereas at this point, we don't even know who the wide receiver 2 is going to be in Cleveland for Amari Cooper. So I think we have to take Amari. I mean, like we said, Amari drafted in 2015, Mike Evans drafted in 2014 as well. I believe Mike Evans is about to be 29. Let me double check. Yeah, no, Mike Evans is going to be 29 near the beginning of the season. Let me know what y'all think. I know a lot of people are probably going to hate me for this video. I understand. I'm not a big-time fan of Deshaun Watson. I don't have a Deshaun Watson jersey up in my room or anything, but I am a fan of scoring fantasy points. I am a fan of winning Dynasty chips, and that's really what I care about with this channel. But of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. Make sure that you are drafting Deshaun Watson in the first round of your Dynasty Superflex startups if you want to build that winning team. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you again. Hope you have a great day, and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.